Here. All right, hello and welcome to the Women Chiropractors webinar. My name is Nicole Cowley, and for those of you that don't know me, I own Chiro Social Tech, and recently met with the Women Chiropractors about, I say recently, I guess it's really been about 4 months ago now, and our company is going to be donating our social media services to the group just for so many big reasons, but for my core passion in chiropractic, social media, and obviously I love working with other women. So this couldn't have been such an incredible opportunity. So I'm really excited to join them. One of the things that I'm doing above multiple is really trying to find a great collaboration with our wonderful sponsors and partners and be able to serve what they're able to offer to our ladies. So you know the options that are out there. I can't tell you how many questions we see in the group specifically on what Dr. Jeff Brown, who I'm going to introduce tonight, talks about. So this should be a kickoff to a really exciting one. But before we get there, I just wanted to encourage all of you women to definitely in the free Facebook group, there was a post by the WDC sponsors recently on what would you like to see the Women Chiropractors group do? Like if you could just, you know, throw anything out there. And I've been following that, and that is just a phenomenal post. There's so many great ideas in there. Ultimately, Women Chiropractors is a non-for-profit to serve women chiropractors. So we really want this to be a collaboration. There's huge power in numbers. I think we all saw that recently with what Dr. Rosemary is doing with ChiroTouch. So buying power and just all of us coming together to be able to really serve it a whole is going to be incredible in what I think we can do in the next few years. So we're at the very beginning. I'm very excited to have all of you here. And I just want to give a quick encouragement for all of you to go, you know, comment on that and be in the, you know, first initial conversations of where this group can go. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into what we are talking about this evening. So we have tonight Dr. Jeff Brown, who is a chiropractor, and he is the co-owner of Hipaamate, and that is a HIPAA software solutions provider. So we see and we know HIPAA is like this term that encompasses so many things, and we think we know it, and then it seems like something changes, or ultimately it's like technology changes, and we realize we're not sure if we're secure as we're supposed to be and as we should be. So we wanted to bring him in tonight to share how he can provide his solutions, and we also wanted to bring him in to answer some of your questions. So if you do have questions or comments, leave those in the chat. We're going to try about 8:45, 8:50 to take a Q&A session, so please do share in there. But I want to turn this over. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Dr. Brown.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And I also want to thank everyone who joins tonight. I know we're all busy. It's a Sunday. We have our kids and everything else to get into bed and prepare for our next, well, big week. So I wanted to thank you for your time as well. HIPAA compliance. No one loves to talk about HIPAA compliance. Actually, you're going to find out that I do. I actually love it because I have something good to say. I'm going to share my screen here for a moment. I can jump over, share screen. I'm new to this particular, you don't really need to see my email, so I'm going to bring this up. Okay, so again, my name is Dr. Jeff Brown, and I'm going to jump over here. Let's go ahead and play that so you can see this full screen. And I am a chiropractor. I'm actually I don't like to use this word retired chiropractor because I'm not retired. However, I did actually leave practice 2 months ago to go full-time with Hipaamate. I've been building this software for well over a year, and it's finally launched, and so we're ready to roll, and I need to spend my time on my new baby, which is Hipaamate, to get it out there to the masses. A little bit about myself. I was in practice for 4 years, and then I took a fork in the road, and I ended up using, you guys can see this? Can you see the PowerPoint screen? I just want to make sure. I think so, yes. I ended up taking a fork in the road. I ended up working for software companies for about 7 years, doing software product management, which was a wonderful experience. However, I soon missed practice, and so I went back into private practice 2.5 years ago. And I was actually quite shocked that when I went back into practice, because when I left practice the first time, everyone was still doing HIPAA with, paper manuals, and we were going to seminars and hiring consultants, and we'd have basically, we didn't know what to do with HIPAA compliance. And then I did 7 years in software companies, and I went back into practice only to find the exact same thing, which was quite surprising, actually. So, being in a software background, I realized that there is a better way with HIPAA. It should not be done via paper anymore. Software is meant to help us people do hard things. And so I set out to build a HIPAA compliant software tool, which is what I did. And there we go. This is the old way of HIPAA compliance. I think we've all seen this. In fact, we probably have them on our desk right now. This is a real picture from the chiropractor, from my chiropractor, in fact. When I told her that I was building a HIPAA compliance tool, she was thrilled. She said, "You need to go talk to my office manager," which I did. And when I went to go talk to Catherine, she goes, "Oh my gosh, this is perfect timing because look what I have to do." And she showed me her pile of HIPAA compliance materials, which is exactly what this is. And it includes workbooks from seminars, and you can see all the little handwritten notes and all that. And she goes, "Jeff, every year I break this stuff out, and I have to try to remember or figure out and just, put the puzzle pieces together and try to do this correctly." And I said, "Catherine, that needs to go away. No chiropractor, no really small healthcare provider anywhere in the country should have to deal with that. It's outdated, it's ridiculous, and it's absurd, really." So my whole goal then was to set out and build Hipaamate, which I did, to end paper HIPAA compliance and really just end the confusion. And most of all is to end the waste of time. HIPAA compliance, if you even make an attempt to do it correctly, it is an extremely time-intensive process for either you or your staff. Of course, it means it's a headache. And I want to save time. If we can make HIPAA compliance easy for people, then it actually won't be such a burden and it won't be such a big deal. And actually you might learn a few things out of it. So that's what I set out to do. I'm going to escape from here, and I am going to show you a PDF. So this checklist is just a really quick, brief way to sort of see, how your tested or how your office is doing with HIPAA compliance. It'll be something that is, I think, emailed to you after the webinar. But anyway,
Yes,
it gives a little
sorry.
bit of information. Yes.
Dr.
Okay,
Brown,
good.
we will email everybody this HIPAA compliance checklist. If you register, you won't know this, but if you register this, if you're watching this on the replay, you should definitely already have it as well. And then, yeah, your screen looks beautiful. This is great.
Okay, good. So this checklist it's basic, but I kind of did that on purpose because you can't learn HIPAA from a checklist, nor should you really be expecting to. And if any of these check boxes off to the left, which I'm actually going to go into some detail this evening on these, but if any of these are unfamiliar, then just don't check it, because if it's unfamiliar, then obviously you're not doing it. And I kind of put a little note in here. Good news, our software does all this stuff. But this is a little way for you to kind of just go through your office and say, hey, am I doing X, Y, and Z? And if not, hopefully tonight you'll learn what you can do. I'm going to close out of here. And again, I don't really need my email open, but there it is. I don't need that. Okay. What I'm going to do is the best way to actually demonstrate how simple, because again, really what I want people to get out of this webinar is that HIPAA is nothing to fear. It isn't. And I get actually, it frustrates me sometimes when I hear the seminar people and the consultants, and you read the articles about all the fear stuff that's going on. Oh my gosh, there's going to be $50,000 fines, and you're going to be, locked out of your office because of a HIPAA audit, or there's all this stuff going on. Yeah, that is true, but that really isn't the reason to do HIPAA compliance. The reason to do it is because it actually is something that is extremely valuable for your own practice reputation and your patient's reputation. You want to keep those patient records secure. And the best way to do it is actually to follow what HIPAA has set out as guidelines. The only problem is, of course, it's very difficult to understand those guidelines, which again, I want to break down those barriers and make it easy. But at the end of the day, we want everyone to have a good, secure practice so that they don't ever have to deal with a spyware issue or some kind of breach that you have to do a notification. We don't want any of that stuff. We want patient records safe, and we want to keep our practice reputation top-notch. And one way to do that is through keeping security. Okay, this is our website. And I'm already logged into the software, but I want to show you what we've done, because one of the biggest problems with HIPAA in the past is that it's extremely confusing, and it's extremely expensive. If you want to do it right, you send your staff to seminars, you hire consultants, you buy CDs, and all that really does is lead to actually more questions, typically. So I wanted to build a software that is similar to TurboTax for HIPAA, which really just walks you or your staff, if you have an office manager doing your HIPAA compliance, walks you through the system step by step. Doesn't leave any stone unturned. We do all the reporting for you. But I'm going to, instead of just kind of showing you what the software does, I'm actually going to show it to you in a way that is letting you know what the actual HIPAA requirements are, the safeguards. And in particular, I'm talking about the security rule. There's 3 HIPAA rules. There's the privacy rule, which everybody knows, which is more like safeguarding paper records. And it is safeguarding, it's things like our notice of privacy practices. We all know that. There's the security rule, which is very, very complex, which is what we're making easy. And there's the breach notification rule, which don't worry about that unless there's a breach, and then you just follow some steps, and it's actually simple. Okay. Going through the actual requirements, and as I go through these, write down questions if you have them. We'll make sure we answer them at the end, because again, this can be a lot of information. And before I do this, I actually want to let you know that I've done talks on HIPAA compliance before, and I always love to tell people, like, these are the HIPAA rules to forget. And I say that because I really don't want people taking notes. Oh my gosh, I have to do X, Y, and Z, because then you still have to apply that in your office. The beautiful thing with software and technology is that the software will implement these things in your practice and guide whoever your staff person is through the process. So don't really worry about taking notes. Again, feel free if you want to, and of course, we're definitely going to have some questions here at the end. Okay. Very basic. Most offices, you probably do know this, but you need to actually have a privacy officer, officially assign a privacy officer. And with the software here, we kind of let, these are the particular roles. The good news is with the privacy officer, if you see this little note, and scattered throughout our software, I put notes in. Here, I'm going to zoom in on this because I'm sure it's probably not the most easiest thing to see. So I'm going to zoom in a lot. Well, I zoomed in a little too far. It took away there we go. I put notes throughout the software meant to just sort of me communicating with a customer. And this note says it is not reasonable for a small office or expected for you to hire security people. You don't. You hire, front desk staff, clinical staff, you hire billing individuals and people that are going to help with your practice, and chiropractors. You're not hiring IT people, and HIPAA does not expect you to. And I kind of say in here also that, of course, people who use our software, they can use us as a resource if they're, if they have questions about certain things. We understand it is complex, and so we help with these activities. But that still doesn't take away the obligation that you have to assign someone as your privacy officer. Next is job roles. And I'm going to step back for just a moment. Everything in here, we try to make as many of these things like little check boxes, click things like this. And the reason we do that is because it makes the data, it basically made it's standardized data is what that means. It's so that I can take a checkbox. When you check no, the software knows this, and it can apply that information or that logic later. If you check yes, it means that as well. So we have a lot of checkboxes in here because it's how we actually make this software efficient for you later, so that, again, it can save you time. Okay, job roles. Most of us, being a small office, we actually have job roles, but a lot of times they're not written down. They're actually just in our head. And we just know. We have a small staff. We know everybody's name, and we know who they are. But from crossing your T's, dotting your I's, HIPAA compliance, you do actually need to have it documented. So we allow this to happen easily, where you just have different clinical roles, and what type of access they have to your system. Workforce. This is the next one here. And there is you have to list your workforce, okay? And I'm sorry, but this the little zoom here. I'm going to minimize this. Okay, the webinar thing was kind of covering up part of my screen, but hopefully you can see this off to the right. But when you add workforce, you have to have their name, their role, what kind of access they have, and then what training they've had, basically. And we usually show what training is not is out of date, and I'll show this to you later. Inventory items. So this is any device in your office, for example, a desktop, a laptop, a tablet, a phone or a smartphone, an internet router, a printer. Any device that ever has patient information on it or transfers through it. That's the device that you want to list. So when you add an inventory or add a media item, we kind of walk whoever's doing this through the process. You select what it is. It's a smartphone. You give it a name. Where is it located? We ask several other questions. Who's it assigned to? And then there's these different questions like, is it password protected? Is it encrypted? And all of this kind of stuff. These questions here, they mean something later on in what's called a risk analysis. But for right now, when you're just adding an inventory item, we ask these little things. And again, pretty much everything is a checkbox, little switches, because again, that's how we make the software smart. Business associates. And again, I know I'm whipping through this here, but we will open this up for questions later. Business associates, we all know but we should know what those are. Your EHRs, billing companies if you use them, attorneys if you use them, that obviously handle patient information, et cetera. And when you add a business associate, there's a certain amount of information that's required by HIPAA to know about them. It all makes sense, actually, but the good news is you just add a business associate. We ask your staff to add the information. They do that. They hit save. Okay. Policies and procedures. So this one is probably one of the few things that actually everybody has from a HIPAA compliance standpoint, but they're probably not compliant. The reason I say that is because policies actually are required to be reviewed or approved by you, your office, on an annual basis. And most of us don't actually have a record of, on March 3rd, 2014, we reviewed it. On March 3rd, 2016, we reviewed it. We typically don't do that, which is kind of the nice thing about software too, is every time there's when you go into a policy and you read it and you go, yep, this is what I want, you just approve the policy. And they timestamp that, and we always know then when the last approved date, and we actually keep a record of all the approvals. So in the event of an audit, they say, well, let's see your track record of approving policies. You can spit out basically a list of there's 20 policies for HIPAA. Here's all 20, and here's all the dates that we reviewed them and who reviewed them, which is the privacy officer. Some policies, like the one you just saw, are just a click and approve. Other ones, you actually need to enter a little bit of information. Because, and I will say this, that policies are, they have to be custom to your office. Not all of them, but some of them. Some of them can blanket many offices, but there are quite a few policies that they have to be specific to your office. So getting a policy manual from a colleague and just putting your name on it or your office name, which is what I did when I first opened practice, because that's what everybody did, that actually doesn't fly because it really isn't my policy. So policies that require additional information, we ask you for that information. This happens to be a password policy procedure here. And so, you can select what kinds of things that you want for your password policy. You're going to see this pop up in training here in a little bit. Other policies are another example of one that can only be specific to your office is, for example, emergency operations. Emergency operations is basically you have to describe what it is that you do in the event that your patient scheduling is down or your clinical system is down, because we all have that, a power failure or something happens and you can't access your records, but you still want to see patients. This is just describing, what do you guys do? Do you have paper records that are backups, etc.? And then again, you'll see this in training later because it's how you train your staff. It's a wonderful thing. Speaking of training, here it is right here. There are 7 annual training events. And when we built the software, I dug through all the HIPAA standards and I made sure that we covered all training components within the HIPAA standards, so that again, if anyone ever was to audit you, you can actually show them the training that you gave to your staff and all of the dates and who was in attendance and everything else. Some of these trainings are, here, let's go into one like password management. This is just a simple 5-minute training. You would open this up, maybe during a staff meeting is how most offices do this. Sometimes in bigger offices, they might have a staff meeting with 6 people, but then there's 6 people who are part-time or whatever, and they just print it off and they leave it in the box and, in an employee box and say, read this, let me know when you've read it, because that's totally acceptable. If there's any training that is specific to your office, then we highlight that in yellow, because this came from your policies, actually, right? So in this particular, got a little ding on, okay. In this particular training, these are the only things that are specific to your office. I'm going to close out of this one and show you one. Do you remember the emergency operations and policies? this is the same thing. And again, it would just make sense that your staff has been trained on, well, what happens? What does our particular office do in the event that we all come in tomorrow and there's no power? How are we going to see patients? This is a detailed plan, so that's been planned ahead of time, and everyone knows what to do. And data recovery if there was actually loss of data. Okay. Activity review. These next two, actually, risk management and activity review, became somewhat hot topics back in the meaningful use days when EHR incentive program was around, and because it was specifically called out in the meaningful use. However, these two have been around since HIPAA, so since 2005, everybody was supposed to be doing these. But an activity review, again, we walk your staff through, or whoever's doing it. It's just, when did you do it? Who was the person who did it? And then we kind of walk you through, again, these different security-related sort of access things, user accounts. It's like a security, it's an audit log, and all your EHRs have an audit log. So this is how we document those. The one thing, and then I'm actually going to open this up for questions shortly, but I really have to hit this home. The risk management, pretty much absolutely everything within HIPAA revolves around risk management. Okay, that's really why we're doing all this stuff. That's why we have a list of our workforce. It's why we have inventory items and we know where they're located. It's why we know who our business associates are and their level of access. Everything boils down to this component right here. It's why we ask all of these things first before we do this. A risk analysis has never actually been done for real. I'm kind of joking, but I'm not joking. I've never seen it done, a legitimate risk analysis in any chiropractic office ever, because it is extremely complex what they're actually asking you to do, or I'm sorry, to do it correctly. However, finally, with the advent of, here it is, Hipaamate and data-driven software, where we're taking information from these above tasks and we're then pushing it into the risk analysis, the risk analysis becomes extremely simple. And basically, you're reviewing your workforce members and business associates. This just means, is your list accurate? Because again, you do a risk analysis every year, and so you may not have hired anybody in the last 2 years, but you just need to make sure your list is accurate. This right here, managing threats and vulnerabilities, is specifically called out. I don't know. Actually, I only know of one other software vendor that does this. They don't operate in the chiropractic industry, though they operate in the hospital industry, and it sells for $5,000 a year. So I'm pretty sure you don't want to pay that. But they actually do this as well. But it's the only other one of the 50 or so softwares that do HIPAA compliance. You are technically required to do what's called risk analysis, where you assess your threat vulnerabilities. So we walk you through what those are. And this is, I'm going to highlight this right here, because you're supposed to focus your list on only those that are considered reasonably anticipated, meaning not everything, right? I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm on high ground, and we don't really have storms here. Like, we don't ever have flooding or anything like that. So I would never switch this, even though it is switched because I was doing a training. But we don't have earthquakes here. We don't have landslides. We don't have actually any of this. But perhaps if you are in a different industry, or sorry, location, you might say, hey, you know what? We're coastal Florida. This is definitely a reasonable potential here. So I'm going to click it. Here's some other potential threats. And then these are other threats. And when you open these up, you're going to see different vulnerabilities. So this one says, okay, we have a threat of theft, and it's because we live in a high crime area, right? Or maybe we have a concern about a past workforce member. That could be a potential. Okay, I'm going to back out of this. So what we do is we walk you through this. You just select the ones that are a threat vulnerability combination, mixing my words, and then you're left with a list. And then you actually assign risk, right? And this is super simple. I won't belabor this, but basically we pulled in the data from all of here, and we're showing you, hey, here's the things that you're currently doing that are going to defend against the a storm or flood. And here's the thing that you aren't doing. Here's a safeguard that you might want to implement. In this case, we have one piece of media, and actually several. It happens to be 4 things are not being backed up, right? This one isn't relevant, though. You don't need backed up. But here's 4 things that aren't being backed up. So it helps you assign a level of what's called probability or likelihood, and then a level of potential damage, meaning what's the likelihood that it's going to happen, and if it were to happen, how bad would it be for office? And as you switch these numbers around, basically the threat level down here changes. Okay, so I'm going to back up. Here's the cool thing. You go through this process. It takes about 10 minutes now because we take all this information, And we're going to spit out a report that you then approve. This report here, we generate it. It's a risk analysis for your particular practice. It lists your workforce, any separated workforce members, all the inventory that you've had, your threat vulnerability combinations, the safeguards that you're currently doing in your office. Then there's, I won't get into this here, but there's also the risk level that you've assigned, and there's the safeguards that you are not doing in your office that you could do, right? But you don't have to. Not everything is a requirement under HIPAA, but it's good to know what you're doing and what you're not doing. And then you basically approve this document, and then it is saved in our reports area forever and ever in case you ever need it. But here's like a last approved document. You know, you can open these up, print them off. And if in the event you were ever audited, you have an absolutely incredible piece of information that no one can ever try to say that you were not taking HIPAA seriously and you weren't trying to do the right thing. We also document our training in here, et cetera. And this software is actually growing month by month as far as the features that we add. But it is now actually 8:56, so I need to really be quiet and answer questions. Any questions out there?
Oh my goodness, Dr. Brown, this is incredible. So I'm a huge, I do social media, but I'm a technology geek. I was a tech recruiter beforehand, and then I also sell software. So the first thing that came to mind is like, this is kind of like H&R Block for HIPAA.
Yes,
it
yeah,
takes you through the steps, you get through it. Incredible. So good work, like incredible work. First of all, kudos to you.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions while we see if any of our women have any questions. Again, if you want to throw those in the chat, and then I can unmute you so you can ask the question and have a conversation to get that answered. So let's say from start, like, is it start to finish? If somebody sat down, bought the software, logged in, and then went through all of these, how long do you think it would take for the whole?
Okay, so it's going to seem like you
gather. That's probably right.
It's going to seem like we planned that question, and we didn't. But I'm going to show you the homepage because about 2 weeks ago, this was not the homepage, and I had to add this quote because this was an unsolicited quote. I had a friend of mine referred this to a chiropractor in Kentucky. That guy then, his name is Dr. Dillon. He signs up. He does a software, and he sends a text message to my friend who referred and says, "Oh my gosh, I did everything in 90 minutes. I'm basically done for a year. It's fantastic." And there was some other stuff in there too. And I was like, can you get him to say that I can use that on the website? He goes, "Of course you can." This is true. Now this office is one that is it's a 3-person office, so it's small. Okay, it's kind of, would represent what my software represents, which is a 3-person practice. Notice my inventory list is it's not huge. It just isn't. I don't have a ton of workforce, obviously. If you have an office that has more like 10 people in it, it's going to take you probably more like 3 hours. It's still not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. And the reason is because there's just more inventory to add. Really, that's kind of it. But yeah, this is very real. And even down in my Q&As, I think I maybe put it down here. It's a common question anyway, like how long does it take, right? Pretty much an hour and a half if you're a smaller practice. In the bigger practice, 3 hours. Now, that's the first time through. Your second year, it'll probably take you a half hour.
Okay, now that was my follow-up question is, do you have in the software notifications or, hey, have you updated this, or hey, it's time to check this type of thing?
Yes. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit because when I do the zoom in, it kind of makes this feature a little funny, but let's go out. Okay, so here's the dashboard, and I'm gonna have to get rid of the people's pictures on the right, but if you look at the software, or actually I'll just do this, I'll slide it over. You can see here where we have like training that's overdue. It's letting me know that there's 5. When do I have policy? I have a policy due that's in 276 days. I don't have to do a activity review or risk analysis for 352 days. So there are notices that let you know like where you stand in case you do need to add.
That's great.
Do something. And over the course of a year, though, there may be events that occur. For example, let's say you let somebody go, or somebody moves on to another position or something like that in another company. Your privacy officer or yourself will go in here and you want to remove that person. And I'm going to actually do this. And this will prompt another little feature that says, okay, well, was the employment amicable or hostile? did you collect these things? Because these are the things that we have on record. You know, they had front door keys and an access code to the server room. So you're going to want to like basically document that you did all of these things before you actually remove them. But if I don't do something and hit save, you know, it's just going to let me know that it's a pending, you know, this person is pending, like the tasks. So sometimes in the middle of a year, you know, there are things that you do, or if you move offices or you buy an EHR, you want to redo your risk analysis. But the good news is it's a piece of cake.
Right. No, this is beautiful. I'm just really impressed with what you've put together. Let me ask you the question, how much does this cost?
Oh, that is an excellent question. So I knew when I set out to build this, and I have people fighting me on this like all the time, luckily not within, it's really the company is owned by myself and another software engineer. And then we have a third guy that he just helps out because he loves it. But people in the business community are saying that I'm wrong. And I can't believe that they're saying this, but they just don't understand. So HIPAA compliance, I said that people don't do it because it is confusing. The other thing is that because for them to actually do it, they go for outside help and they realize how expensive it is. And that help doesn't actually materialize to HIPAA compliance at the end of the day. So
Can I tell you really
yes.
quick, not to interrupt you,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a little bit in shock, and I was just at a conference this weekend, so that's why I'm like no makeup, kind of shutting my video off, and my son kind of screaming in the background. But I talked to a doctor, and his daughter came to the office and got on the computer and was playing a bunch of games and basically got spyware. So as he's documenting his soap notes, like these games start popping up. So anyways, long story short is he did an analysis with, a common HIPAA guy that works specifically with chiropractors. Love the guy, naming no names, absolutely. But to say he was quoted $1,000 a month. Or if he didn't want the support basically to be able to log into your computer and check things or connect with you, it would be $400 a month for the base package.
Yeah.
So wow.
I'm part of my mission, and I'm just going to say it. Part of my mission is to actually end the practice of consulting with HIPAA, not in the grander scheme of things with consulting in general, but HIPAA compliance cannot be done over the phone, and it can't be done through a manual, and it can't be done over a CD. It is done in your office by somebody who's actually doing it. And it is done with something that guides you, like software, just through the process, and it documents everything. Because HIPAA is a lot of work if you try to do it in any other way. It's just a fact. So that is my goal. And I know, and just my other little mission here is to get every single chiropractor HIPAA compliant. And obviously I'd love them to use Hipaamate. And I know the best way to do that is to make it affordable. And here's why. Because software is inexpensive, right? It's expensive for me to get the word out, but software itself to actually run it is very inexpensive. So why am I going to charge a bunch of money when I don't really need to keep like the lights on, so to speak, of running the software? But the other thing is I would rather have 10,000, actually a lot more. I'd rather have 10,000 chiropractors paying me $100 a month than 500 chiropractors paying me $1,000. Why? The reason is because I have 10,000 people out there who are going to be at a seminar, and they're going to have friends, and they're going to want to tell somebody about it. That's why I'm doing this, because I don't want anybody to be like to hesitate to tell their friend or their colleague or their dentist, because this isn't just for chiropractors. Anybody can use this. Why would they ever keep this a secret? I don't want that to be a secret.
Like chiropractic, why do we keep it a secret? It shouldn't be a secret. No, and I think you're right on, because for us especially, and one of the reasons we really wanted to connect with you and have you within is because this is a very important topic. And like you said, it's risk management. It's one of those things of, am I going to get audited? Am I going to have a security breach? Nobody knows. But if that happens, it is super important that you have these check marks crossed off, and you've made it super simple, super affordable. And that's what we're really trying to do with women chiropractors, is find these resources for you out there, because we know there's so many of them. There's so many questions, and you're busy, and you don't even know sometimes what to ask, because we don't know what we don't know. And you've laid it out beautifully. So let me see. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Very affordable for the product. Impressive. You're getting great comments. I don't see any specific questions. Dr. Jeff, obviously we have your information inside. We're going to send off the PDF to them, so they're going to have your information there. You can sign up at hipaamate.com, and then once they sign up, do they just get going? Okay.
Yep. When if somebody was to sign up, it literally, we have news and updates up here, but right now it's just like new to Hipaamate. We tell you work your way down the left, which is down here. You just work your way down. If you try to skip ahead, the software actually knows your first time through and it'll push you back to where you need to go. The other little thing is, I'm going to slide my thing over. Right here, there is a support button.
Oh, beautiful.
And you open this up. Oop, and basically, if you have a question, you type it in here and you hit submit. Or call me. You can call me too. This is actually direct to me. Or just type this in. When you hit submit, I actually know who you are and I know what page you're looking at. So don't worry about trying to say, hey, this is Michelle and I'm on the first page and I don't understand. Just type your question and I'll get it.
I love it. I'm really excited. Thank you so much for what you've created and for sharing with us this evening this amazing software. I think it's incredible. Anything else that you would like to share with our ladies before we sign off this evening?
I please don't keep this a secret. Please don't. This is one of, I have a few, I wish I could, spend an hour talking, but there are some people who really just get this and they know how big this is. I don't want there to be any more, I don't want people to have just HIPAA headaches and just to think of HIPAA in this like bad light. I want it to just be something, it's something that we do, right? You just do it. And it's because it's not hard and it's something that you do and then you're done. And, if something needs to happen, we'll tell you. So I guess just peace of mind, make it easy. Don't worry about this anymore. Stop spending your money at seminars. Don't send your staff to those things, please. Then they come back with something that you need to buy anyway. And then they still have to implement it. So just don't. And ask me questions. If anyone really wants to get a hold of me, they can always go to the website and call anytime, or you could always just even book a time if you want to schedule ahead of time. That's fine too.
Perfect. I love it. Well, hey, thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Brown. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. You will be getting that email sometime tomorrow that'll have that checklist in it for more information. So check that out and share that with your own, network, so we can also give back to Dr. Brown for giving so much to us. Until next time, we'll see you all later.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.